What's up, Star Wars nerds, and welcome to another episode of Brett on Fett. On today's episode, we'll take a look at the new Darth Malgus from the Black Series, and also take a look back at the previous Darth Malgus from the Vintage Collection. Plus, I'll go over some quick thoughts on the latest reveals from Hasbro at their recent PulseCon. Let's get to it.
You assumed no force could challenge you. Finally, we have returned. Deceived. And now your republic shall fall.
Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 74 of Brett on Fett. And before we get into the Darth Malgus figures, real quick, I want to give my thoughts on the latest Hasbro PulseCon, which took place this past Friday, September 22nd, 2023. If you're not familiar with PulseCon, it's just a long live stream that Hasbro puts on once a year to go through their various toy lines and give some news updates and product reveals. And so, of course, they had a session for Star Wars, and they revealed a few interesting products for both the Black Series and the Vintage Collection. So I just want to give my quick thoughts on those. So let's take a look. All right, I'm going to try to run through these pretty quick, starting with the Black Series. And there was really only two significant product reveals for figures for the Black Series. And the first of those two was Baylanskoll from the Ahsoka series. This is that awesome Dark Jedi character. Really makes the show, and he just looks awesome. I think they did a great job on this sculpt. I'm a little leery about the color of the lightsaber. Now, they did say that it is tinted more of an orange, but on the photos, it just looks like red to me. So I'm just going to hold my judgment until I actually see this in other pictures in someone's hand to see if it does have that orange tint from the show, because it really should stand out different from the traditional red lightsabers. But anyways, Baylan is probably my favorite character from the Ahsoka series so far, and since there's no sign of him showing up in TVC anytime soon, I probably will end up picking this one up. And you really can't have the master without the apprentice, and so the second product reveal for the Black Series figures was Shinhati, also from the Ahsoka series. She, of course, is Baylan's Dark Jedi apprentice, and I really don't know what to think about this figure. When I look at the details of the sculpt, it looks really good to me. But when you take a step back and you see the overall images, something is off, and I think it's maybe her face sculpt and that combination with the hair. There's just something off about it to me, and I just can't quite put my finger on it, because again, when I look at the details of the sculpt, I don't really see anything wrong with it. So I'm guessing it's the face sculpt is just turning me off. It's not the worst face sculpt, but the actress may have just a difficult face to emulate on plastic, and so that just may be the problem, and that's unfortunate. That happens sometimes, and I think that's probably what I'm seeing here. But let me know in the comments what you think about the Shinhati figure. And for Black Series helmets, they revealed an all-new Captainrex Phase 2 Clone Trooper helmet. And this thing does look pretty awesome. I'm really digging the paint apps on this thing. And I think any Black Series helmet collector is going to be ecstatic to get this in their collection. And finally, for Black Series, we'll just talk quickly about the pipeline reveals. They first had Darth Vader from A New Hope. They've already had a New Hope Vader, so I'm guessing this is just a tweak, or maybe it's a refresh. I don't know. I'm very confused. And then I'm also confused about the Mandalorian. They said this will be his season 3 look. However, we already have an all-new Mandalorian available for pre-order, and he's going to come with the dark saber. I just don't know what the difference will be between that brand new Mandalorian and this season 3 one they've pipelined. I'm guessing basically no difference, except maybe the packaging. So that's a really disappointing, confusing reveal as well. And then they wrapped it up with a Phase 1 Clone Trooper that's on an all-new Clone Trooper body. So that might be good. It'll be great for army building. And then finally a Night Owl Mandalorian figure. That one should be pretty cool, depending on how much reuse is involved. All right, switching over to the vintage collection, we got our first look at the brand new Chopper from the Ahsoka series. And he does look very good. I'm digging the paint apps and the articulation, especially the tilting head. And he comes with a little accessory. You can switch out his little radar dish there. So very happy and excited to see Chopper. And then we finally got our first look at director Krennic. Now, the one thing disappointing here with the card back is that they did not go with the film out image that a lot of us wanted to see, which was this image here of him standing in front of the targeting system view screen. This is just an epic image of Krennic, and really wanted to see that on the card back. That being said, the image they decided to go with is still a good image of the character, and so it is a fine consolation for the card back. The figure itself looks great. Great head sculpt. I think they did an excellent job matching the likeness of the actor. Now, the one big controversy on this figure will be his cape. Hasbro chose to go with a molded soft plastic for the cape rather than soft goods. A lot of people are going to want soft goods. I'm kind of in the middle on this one. I think soft goods could have gone really wrong. It just depends how they would have worked it out. The collar where it goes vertical, that would have been a challenge. And sometimes cloth goods just don't look right. They don't take the shape you want it to. And so I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about this one. If there was a way to do it right, then yes, of course, I would prefer cloth goods. That soft plastic where it doesn't move, it just doesn't give any life to the figure. And so I just think this is a difficult decision for Hasbro in this case, and we should consider going a little easy on them for making this particular decision. We don't know. Maybe they tried the soft goods and they just couldn't get it to look right. We just don't know. I think it's one of those, they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. And so, I'm going to go easy on them. I'm definitely going to withhold judgment till I have the figure in hand. But definitely excited to finally be getting Krennic in the TVC line. He is one of my favorite bad guys in Star Wars. They also revealed that they'll be making a Huyang figure for the vintage collection. I'm very happy to see this. As you guys know, I love droids, so I'll always take a droid, especially a newly tooled droid. And he is a very delightful character on the Ahsoka series. The only concern I have on this one is maybe the color is a little off. Here it looks kind of like a matte beige color, whereas on the show I believe he's more of a metallic silvery color. And so we'll see what happens there. This is very early on in the process. I don't think they even have a working model yet. I think this is just all digitally rendered. And so there may be an opportunity for them to adjust the color and fix that issue. And the final product reveal for TVC was that jediknightrevan and HK-47 2-pack. I'm excited about this one. The Revan, of course, looks very good. It's based off that totally new mold they did for Darthrevan. And the HK-47 is a refresh from the Build-A-Droid from the Legacy Collection. I don't own that Build-A-Droid HK-47. I've wanted him for a while. It's going to get some updated paint apps, and so I think it looks great. I love droids, so just really happy to get him, and I'm just so happy they did the jediknightrevan. We pretty much knew they would to not let that new Revan mold go to waste, and I think this is a great idea with the 2-packs, putting two characters that go together that most of us are gonna buy together anyways, and this way you get them all at once. in and outer packaging, which is going to protect the individual cards, and the individual cards should come unpunched, which is a bonus. And finally, we got some pipeline reveals for the Vintage Collection. The first being Cal Kestis in the Imperial Officer disguise. I just really don't have any interest in this particular version of Cal Kestis for whatever reason. I'm sure it's going to be a very easy figure to put together for Hasbro using that new officer body and just popping the new Cal Kestis head on it. I just don't think anyone's really wanting this one, so it's just kind of a meh reveal for me. Now, the second one, the Mandalorian Judge, I am very excited about. This character was on my figure wish list for Mando Season 3, so very happy to see that Hasbro is going to make him. And then finally, they revealed another Army Builder 4-pack. This one, a Phase 2 Clone Trooper pack. I'm sure they'll be using that brand new Phase 2 Clone Trooper body. Curious to see if they will do anything for the helmet, which a lot of people were upset about being a little too frumpy looking. But they're going to have the Ahsoka clone, a 501st, and then 2 plain ones. And I think it's a pretty good selection for this army builder. And I don't think either of those first 2 are actual named clones, so that's a good thing and a step in the right direction. Unless, of course, that 501st clone is Appo. Alright, so Darth Malgus is a Sith Lord from Star Wars The Old Republic game. He's a character that existed around 3,700 years before A New Hope. A lot of people see him and think he might be Darth Vader with his mask off. He does look very similar. Obviously, the design of this guy took some inspiration from Vader, but he is a completely different character. A very popular villain from that game. And Darth Malgus made his action figure debut under the TVC 1.0 line under the Expanded Universe Chase logo. And then following the hiatus that TVC went on, where you had Black Series come in with a 3.75 line, they did re-release that same Darth Malgus under the Black Series. Well, recently Hasbro produced an all-new Darth Malgus figure under their Black Series 6-inch scale as part of the Gaming Greats line. And it's been a while since I've featured a Black Series figure on my channel. If you're new to my channel, you may not know that I actually do collect Black Series in addition to the Vintage Collection. I'm just a lot more selective. I just don't have the room to buy every figure. So I only buy the figures that I really enjoy, or it's a character that is a focus character, or it's just an awesome droid, because you guys know I am a sucker for droids. And so I really don't buy that many Black Series. I probably buy maybe on average about 5 to 10 a year. So definitely I am more of a TVC collector, but I still appreciate Black Series for what it is, and I do pick up a figure every once in a while. And Darth Malgus was definitely one I wanted to pick up because this is going to be a candidate for Black Series Figure of the Year in my opinion. So we're going to take a look at this new Black Series Darth Malgus, and then we're going to revisit the old Vintage Collection Darth Malgus and kind of compare the two, and maybe talk about whether or not we need a new version of Malgus for TVC. So let's take a look at the Black Series Darth Malgus. Alright, let's start off by looking at the packaging. Here is the Darth Malgus box. Obviously, they had not restarted the windows on the boxes when they set up this design. There's the artwork on the side looking completely menacing. There's a little description of Malgus on the back if you want to pause it to read the whole thing. And there's an image showing you exactly what's included inside. So pretty cool artwork. Just very glad we're going back to Windows so you can actually see what is inside. But there is the packaging. All right, here is Malgus out of the box, and let's just take an overall look at him. And right off the bat, you can see how menacing he looks through that hood. And you can just see some really nice details and some pretty decent paint apps on the figure as a whole. We can look back behind the cape and you still have some nice details on the back despite typically being covered with the cape. So that's a nice touch. And I really love the hood on this figure. It's perfectly sized and fitted. And you peel that back to reveal one of the best parts of this figure is the face sculpt. It is fantastic. He is completely menacing looking. Just want to quickly show you how the shoulder pads attach. This is a very common practice nowadays from Hasbro to allow plenty of flexibility with the arms. But going back to the head sculpt, the breathing apparatus actually detaches by removing the head, and underneath you can see they did an excellent job with paint apps to show all of his scarring along his jaw there. And you can see even on the back how his breathing apparatus attaches to the back of his head. So very, very nice details there. I apologize, but I do not want to take his head off on this video. I'm just afraid I might mess up the cape while I'm trying to do this review. So I won't be showing you what he looks like with the apparatus completely off. Let's take one more closer look at the different paint apps here. I just really like that metallic silver trim they were using on some of the parts, and just the kind of metallic grays and blacks that they're using here to complete his suit. So very happy with the detailing and the paint apps on the figure. All right, so let's run through the articulation. You got a ball hinge joint at the shoulder, another ball hinge joint at the elbow, and he does achieve 90 degrees, so that's good. The wrist rotates and also has a hinge to rotate to the side. The other hand has a hinge to go up and down. And this is really cool. He has a crunch joint, but then he also has another like ball joint, I guess, at the hips. So you're getting maximum twisting movements there. I don't recall ever seeing that before on a figure. I'll have to go back and check, but that's a really nice feature. And then you've got the nice new barbell hips. You got a ball hinge at the knee, get 90 degrees there. And then you got a hinge at the ankle with the rocker ankles. So this guy's rocking all of the modern articulation and plenty of movement on the head. It's a standard ball, I believe. Not necessarily the barbell feature, but it's just fine. Get all the motion you need with that head. And yeah, articulation is awesome. All right, so now let's take a look at his lightsaber, and this thing is massive. It's got a very huge hilt, and the blade actually comes off. This figure does not come with a separate unlit saber, so you just gotta take that blade off. And what a blade it is. This thing is extremely long. Let's bring in an average lightsaber for comparison. This is Luke's Return of the Jedi saber, and you can see not only is the blade much longer, but the hilt is also way bigger than an average saber. So this thing is just a massive saber for a massive figure. Now, one thing to note regarding the saber that is disappointing is nowhere on the figure is there a place to mount the saber, like to his belt or his back. There's just no place for it. So you either have to have the saber in his hand or you've got to have it put away somewhere. Next, just to give you the idea of his size, let's put him next to some other figures. Here is the standard Stormtrooper, the latest version. You can see he towers over a Stormy. Next, let's bring in Darth Revan. Now, Revan is a little bit on the short side, but man, does he look tiny in compared to Malgus. And then let's bring in a big figure. This is the Darth Malgus, also a pretty new figure. Malgus is very tall, but again, compared to Malgus, he just comes up to his shoulders basically. So yeah, still not as tall as Malgus. And finally, I want to bring in what I believe to be the next biggest figure I have. This is the Ned B from Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he gets pretty close. He is definitely shorter. He comes up about halfway up Malgus's head. So yeah, Malgus is by far the tallest Black Series figure I own, and he may be the tallest Black Series ever made. I'd like to see a Chewbacca next to him. I do not own the Chewbacca for Black Series to compare him. If you guys out there know, let me know in the comments. All right, so that's a look at all the details for Darth Malgus. Now let's get him in some poses on the spinny spinny. All right, next up, I want to take a look back at the original Darth Malgus figure. This is the one from the Vintage Collection. And this one you see here is actually the Canadian version of Malgus. And it's a recent purchase that I picked up from John, the action figure grader from YouTube. Great YouTuber and friend. And he sold this to me at an extremely fair price. It was basically at cost for what it would cost you to buy the figure and get it graded and pay the shipping and all that. So actually maybe even less than that. So thank you, John. But you can see this is VC96, and the grade on this one is a CAS overall score of 90, which is awesome. And there is the character debut sticker, which is different than the regular version. It's got the multiple languages on there, so that's awesome. And this is just one of my favorite card backs in all of TVC. It's just a great looking figure card back combo. It is way up there for me. And before I made this purchase from John, the only one I had, which I kept on card, had some pretty rough edges and a little bit of veining on it, so I was never happy with that version I had. And so I really wanted to get a nice graded example. So this was perfect for me to get this from John. And that way I could then open the figure that I've always had to show it for you guys. So let's take a look at the Darth Malgus out of the packaging. All right, so here is Malgus out of the packaging. And now that I have him in hand, finally, after all these years, I do have some mixed feelings on this one. And I first want to show you this cape that they included with the hood. Now it's got this little wiring inside, so you kind of pinch it around the neck, and I do applaud Hasbro for trying to make this work, but it is just a hot mess. The hood is just way too big, and it's just really difficult to secure that wiring part around his neck when his neck is obscured by the shoulder pads. I thought maybe that thing would go under the shoulder pads because you can take those off if you remove the head, but that didn't work at all. You could not get the shoulder pads back on properly. So let's just get rid of this cape for the rest of the review. All right, so let's take a good look at the figure without that extra cape. And right off the bat, you can see the detailing on the upper body is fantastic. And, you know, it gets a little bit simpler as you go down, but the paint apps are still pretty good. At least you've got some detailing of the mold underneath the cape there on the back, so that's good. So I'm liking what I see from just the overall look. Of course, the best part of this figure is the head sculpt, in my opinion, as well as some of the detailing on his upper body armor. His breathing apparatus is molded to the head. It's not a separate piece like the new Black Series version. The shoulder pads have some nice weathering. It's a soft plastic, and it's kind of stuck to that other soft plastic, the rest of the upper body armor, which I mentioned before. It does come unplugged and can be removed if you remove the head. And by the way, if you remove the head and those shoulder pads, you can actually remove this soft goods cape and then put everything back together to have them without the cape if you chose to do that. Overall, there is some nice detailing on this figure, especially for a 3 3/4 figure from 2011. Remember, this is a pretty old figure, and so I think they did a really good job for the detailing back then. All right, now let's take a look at the articulation on this figure. You've got a ball hinge there at the shoulder, not too bad. You get a little bit of motion there, not too bad. Another ball hinge at the elbow, and let's see, and then you've just got a standard rotation at the wrist with no hinge. Yep, just rotating swivel there, swivel wrist basically. Same thing on the other hand, no hinges. I don't think they were doing that at all back then. You got a swivel crunch there just above the waist. Now here's where it gets really bad though. You got the 5 POA style swivel hips. This is just no good. It makes it very difficult to stand this figure. And you got a ball hinge at the knee, which is fine. Get plenty of angle there. And then you've got a standard hinge at the ankles, but not rocker ankles, of course. And one thing I forgot to mention is that he does come with an unlit saber, and it does attach to his belt. So that is awesome, and a feature that the brand new Black Series version does not have. Let's take a closer look at the lightsaber. I really like this hilt. They did a great job painting it, and I've brought in a 3 3/4 Jedi Luke saber. You can see in this case the blades are the same size, but the Malgus hilt is still much larger than the standard saber. And finally, I just wanted to compare the 2011 3 3/4 scale vintage collection of Malgus to this brand new Black Series 6-inch scale Malgus, just so you can see very big differences in the style of the head. The darker color paint apps on the Black Series version are more of a gray versus a black in the TVC version. Now, I don't like how the Black Series does not have a connection for that saber, and the TVC does. And the Black Series version definitely has the better hood by far. It is a really nice hood. I'd say it's about perfect compared to the TVC one, which is just awful, if I'm being honest. And it's just so bad that I don't want to even use it. But besides those differences, the glaring difference between the two is the updated articulation on the Black Series version. And this is where the TVC Malgus really falls short, is the articulation. It is just terrible. Not only do these swivel hips really make it look like a dated figure, but it also makes him impossible to pose in different positions. He can basically just stand straight up. And so overall, this is just not a great figure, especially for having loose. I think it's fine in the packaging. I've loved it for years sitting on my shelf because he does look very good, especially from the waist up, but it's just not a posable figure, and therefore it's a bad figure, and it definitely needs to be updated. And so I am on board with Hasbro remaking this figure, basically mirroring the style of the Black Series design. They've done that before, so I think they could do that easily here. That being said, even though this is an update I would really love to see, I don't necessarily think it's a priority at the moment. There are so many characters we don't have at all in the TVC line yet, and so I think there should be priority towards some of those characters. I'm talking about missing main characters from major Star Wars films and shows. You know, for example, the missing heroes from A New Hope, such as Farm Boy Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo, and then even main characters from the Bad Batch. We still don't have the rest of the crew other than Hunter. And so definitely all new figures for TVC should take priority for those type of characters, but still Hasbro eventually, after those mains are completed, should consider to go back and redo Darth Malgus. Alright, that's going to do it for this episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know in the comments if you have the new Black Series Darth Malgus and what you think of him. Also, let me know if you think TVC needs an all-new Malgus. Thanks for checking out this video. Thank you so much to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram and on Twitter/X. Take care, and we'll see you next time.